Mark Hettermann spent over 40 years working in the aviation industry, finishing up his career as an American Airlines pilot and chief pilot with a 7-year stint as a vice president for the airline. In that role, Mark managed over 8,000 pilots, more than 600 aircraft, and served as part of a team that successfully moved American Airlines away from bankruptcy and into continued operation. Yet no matter the time in his career, Mark continually defines his aviation experiences with the word team, a concept to which he was completely dedicated, and which became especially significant in his chief pilot role following 9/11.
To go back to 9/11, you're now taking the time to reach out to the families and to try to help them as much as you can. How long did you continue in that role before you were pulled back towards the airport and more airline-oriented or airport-oriented tasks?
It was a co-role. I mean, it went on for more than a few weeks. And that was just what was put on my plate in those 2 weeks. The environment was so fluid. You really didn't have a job, and for many days you couldn't get to your office because National was closed down.
How long was it closed for?
At least 3 or 4 days, and then they let critical parties in, only a few of us, and then they transitioned. It was in that time we were having the discussions about what would it look like if we reopened the airport, what kind of flying requirements, security procedures we would put on the aircraft that were coming there, and that role that developed in counseling or having that team, if you will, put together of legislative assistants, FBI, CIA, airport ops, to say, what's this going to look like, and what can you as an airline accept in your operations?
Were you the only airline representative included with that group?
I don't know that. I know that I was asked to put the perspective of the airlines, not American Airlines, of the airlines in there. And I was available. And I was somebody that the airport manager was comfortable reaching out to at the time.
Again, because of the role that you had developed in as the chief pilot.
Relationship
right.
with him.
In the 9/11 aftermath that you said went on for a number of weeks before everything kind of got back to any kind of a, let's quote, normalcy, was there ever a moment that you recall that you were afraid?
No, I was too busy to be afraid, really, ever. I mean, it just went from one challenge to another. I mean, I spoke at the Memorial Chapel at the Naval Academy at the Captain's Memorial Service, packed house. You went out to speak at Chicago O'Hare. President Bush flew in, and Chicago was still closed. They asked me to lead speak as the chief pilot in Washington, whose crew was on Flight 77 that was in the Pentagon. They also had the United Chief Pilot there at the same time. We both spoke on the stage with President Bush to send a message to the public that we were all arm in arm, hand in hand within the industry to say, let's go fly jets. Let's not show these guys that they can keep our nation on the ground.
Did you believe in that message?
Oh, yeah. I would have had us up days earlier.
Why? Why not give it the time till everybody really feels settled in and safe and comfortable?
A double-edged sword. I think the longer you delay, the more doubts you can put in people's minds.
So you were in a moment in time when the things surrounding the airline industry were not a positive. It was 9/11 and it was tragic on every level you could imagine. And you're asked to come to Chicago to do this speech. What was that moment like?
It was very short, and rightfully so. I mean, it needed to be short, and I have always done all my own writing, and the people at CorpCom, I was working with the CorpCom Chicago lady at the time.
CorpCom is
our internal American Airlines communication generator, if you will. And we'll write the speeches, but they all knew I liked to do my own writing.
How long did it take you to write it? Do you remember?
Not very long. It's just a quick, impactful, probably 3 paragraphs.
Ending with?
Let's go fly. And it's what people want to hear.
Was there any moment when it was difficult to do that? Was there a great emotion attached to it, or was it a job.
If I allowed myself to get stuck in a tragedy, I wouldn't be at my best. So I viewed things as building blocks to putting lives back together while honoring the lives that we lost. I remember one of the things I took on, listening to the pilots and flight attendants in Washington. While the airport stuff was going on, I kept hearing we need a memorial service. And the corporation at the time, I kept pushing that forward, that we need a base memorial service. And before we're not even thinking about going back to fly a scheduled airline without honoring the friends that we've lost. And I kept pushing that in headquarters, and they weren't hearing it. They were hearing, memorial services individually defined, but we don't want to, take too much time on memorial services because it continues to bring back up the tragedy. I understand it. And it was my job to tell headquarters and eventually the CEO that I understand it, but it's not Washington. Washington needs a memorial service. These are all friends. And you need to give them one. And we gave them one. We had it at a Crystal City hotel with a very big venue.
Was it open to the public or just to your company?
Just to the company. IDs were checked at the door. It was any airline employees. Many came from outside. Other bases drove in, but it was pretty much Washington. Baggage handlers, agents, the whole team.
And did you speak?
Yeah, briefly. We had a very well-known Episcopalian minister do the invocation, and the CEO showed up. And it was enough just to be together in the room.
The team.
Yeah, the team.